Hey everyone, and welcome to the Hemp Horticulture series. Today, we'll be discussing transplanting hemp, as well as pot sizes. Transplanting oftentimes is overlooked due to the extra planning, time, and materials needed to transplant multiple times. However, when done correctly, transplanting gives your plants a lot of benefits that will last throughout the entire life cycle of the plant for just a little extra work. So let's go over the benefits first. Transplanting allows for an optimal use of space, and by starting the plants in a small grow container, you're able to maximize your grow space by packing in more plants. Watering also becomes easier as well, and this is because with a smaller container, you can confidently water a plant and know that the roots will be able to access all of the water, using it up each time so that there's no stagnant water left over that can bring a host of aeration problems and root rot. This is less of a problem with fabric pots, as the breathable walls allow for some of the excess water to dry out. But if you're using a synthetic fertilizer with your water, then this will still leave excess nutrient salts after the soil dries, which will slowly build up over time each time the plant is overwatered in a large pot. Transplanting also allows you to reposition a plant if it's off-center or leaning to the side, so you have another chance to center and straighten the plant. Also, when growing outdoors, starting the seeds indoors in a small container before transplanting it outside can help protect the plant from the elements until they're hardier. And this is often done before the grow season begins when it's too cold outside for hemp to thrive, so that the plants have more time in the vegetative stage to maximize yields. One of the most overlooked benefits of transplanting, though, is that it allows for the root ball to become more dense, and the more roots the plant has, the larger it can potentially grow. This is because plant roots will gravitate downwards unless there's some sort of resistance preventing it from moving lower. So when starting a plant in a large solid pot, the roots will grow all the way down to the bottom of the pot before it tries to spread out, causing the bulk of the roots to be located at the bottom half of the pot. This means that by transplanting from a smaller solid pot to a larger pot, the root density will always be more spread out, utilizing more of the space because it staggers when the roots spread out. This is less beneficial with fabric pots because of the way air pruning works, which will naturally increase the density of the root ball throughout the entire pot over time, even without transplanting. But transplanting will still help here, as a denser root system to start will spread out much more evenly when placed in the larger pot. As for when to transplant, if you can check the roots of the plant somehow, that's always the best way. And when the roots of a plant have reached the pot edges and started growing around it, that's the perfect time to transplant. If you don't have access to the plant's roots, like with a fabric pot, then wait until the plant leaves and side stems start to grow past the pot edges before considering transplanting it to a larger pot. As for choosing the right pot size to transplant into, this depends on your goals with transplanting. If you want to prevent overwatering and want to grow an optimal root structure, transplanting multiple times throughout the plant's vegetative stage is the way to go. And this means sizing up in small increments each time. Taking a look at pot diameter sizes, the general rule of thumb is to increase the pot size by 2 inches each time. For example, going from a 6-inch pot to a 8-inch pot to a 10-inch then to a 12-inch, and then to a 14-inch, and so on. Or if your pot is measured by gallons, then that means moving from a 1 gallon to a 2 gallon to a 3 gallon to a 5 gallon and then to a 7 gallon pot. If this sounds too tedious though, you can also just transplant once from a smaller pot into the plant's final container, and that's perfectly fine too. No matter how many times you plan on transplanting, or if you don't plan on transplanting at all and want to start directly with the plant's final container, the pot size you choose for the final container will vary based on your desired final plant size. The rule of thumb here is that for every gallon of grow medium, you'll get about 6 inches of plant height. So for a 1-foot plant, you'll want to use a 2-gallon pot. For a 2-foot plant, you'll want to use a 4-gallon pot, and so on. Of course, if you plan on utilizing any advanced grow techniques to lower the height of a plant and have it spread out with multiple top stems, then go with a slightly larger pot than what this rule recommends, since the pot will need to support a larger overall plant. One final note is that all transplanting should be done in the vegetative stage, with the very last transplant into the final container at least 1 to 2 weeks before flowering, so that the plant has ample time to recover. Otherwise, the slowdown growth caused by transplant shock could decrease the yields during the flowering stage. As for how to transplant, we've covered what to do when transplanting from a solid pot, as well as from a fabric pot in a previous ProTech video, so be sure to check it out. And that's it. Like the content? Then be sure to check out our beginner's guide to creating CBD products from scratch, available at Amazon in print and digital, with links in the description below. You can also find us at hempinapot.com.